Northern Nigeria is blessed with arable lands that can feed the entire nation. Former President Buhari once lamented that Nigeria is only able to cultivate 2.5% of its arable lands. This leaves about 80% of arable land uncultivated in the north alone. But northern elites would rather accumulate wealth for themselves and their family than invest in the region. The result is an insane level of poverty rate, with the World Bank stating that 87% of poor Nigerians live in the north. The poorest region of the nation, which is the Northwest Zone, has a population of 35.7 million people. That is about the same population as the Southeast and South-South combined. The three northern zones have a much larger proportion of Nigeria's human capital, land mass, and agricultural assets, and they have a lot of solid minerals yet to be exploited. If Nigeria were to do away with the current system that breeds poverty and invest in the vast agricultural lands located here, as well as harness the mineral resources of the region, northern Nigeria can feed the whole of the West African sub-region. And with oil revenue dwindling, such a venture can easily earn 20 times what the nation earns currently from oil and gas. So I ask, how can a region with so much potential for greatness also be known as the poorest region of the country? Every year, northern Nigeria continues to grow in population and insecurity, yet cannot produce half of what it consumes. Normally, a region with such a young and large population should represent a large market as well. But it does not, because it has no purchasing power. It has little to zero economic growth, as its economy remains substantially peasant. The little infrastructure it has is in decay. When you look at the young population, most times, it's a bunch of poor roadside beggars with no hope of quality education or opportunities to acquire skills. There's little to no industrial base, no skilled labor, and no capital to invest in developing agricultural technology. So again, how can a region with the majority of the voting population have such terrible political fortunes? How can the region with some of the richest men in all of Africa have the lowest success rates in qualifying examinations for post-secondary institutions and the highest percentage of unqualified teachers in its primary and secondary schools? While the vast majority of the citizens lack access to functional rural health centers, the leaders occasionally jump on planes and go on medical tourism whenever they feel like it. And then, when these poor people lament, the government gives them palliatives conveniently. Keep them poor, then watch as they feed on the crumbs that fall from the tables of the rich. But then you ask, how does poverty benefit the elite? How has it become a thriving business? The rich and powerful have created a lot more poor people in Nigeria, mainly for selfish and political reasons. Northern leaders have managed to keep the northern masses in perpetual ignorance and human misery, that the masses no longer bother to think for themselves. Their size and larger number of local governments entitle them to higher revenue. But why is the region in such a mess? When it comes to elections, northern elites allegedly influence the decision of whom their people should vote for. They manipulate them into selling their votes and sometimes make elections out to be an us versus them situation, leading to the recycled garbage we have leading the nation today. But this thriving business of poverty that may sometimes appear like a northern affair is not without consequences for the entire country. You see, when people are excluded within a society, when they are not well educated, and when they have a higher incidence of illness, there are negative consequences for such a society. At the end of the day, we all get to pay the price for poverty. And like a wise man once said, one day, the poor will have nothing to eat but the rich.